Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Sparks Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, October 4th, and we're going to start with call to order. Or I'm sorry, roll call. I apologize.
Commissioner Vanderwell,
Here.
Commissioner Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Brock,
Here.
Commissioner Fewens,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson,
Present.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick,
Here.
Assistant Human Services Director Armando Ornelas.
Here.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to public comment. This item is for either an action item or just general public comment, and no more than 3 minutes. Do we have any requests to speak?
We have 16 speaker cards filled out. Each of them is specific to the DeAndrea.
Okay, thank you. So there's none in public comment? Great, thank you. Next, we'll move along to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, yes, there is. Item 12 regarding PCN 18-0048, a tentative map regarding 7.72 acres located at 2255 Los Altos, should be removed from the agenda. As the commission may recall, back in June, when the Planning Commission considered a development agreement and rezoning regarding this parcel, a gentleman asked during the public hearing on the development agreement that notice of future meetings about the project be mailed to him, and we as your staff failed to do that. And in fairness to that gentleman and the interest of transparency, I'd ask that that item be removed from this agenda and placed on a future agenda.
Thank you. So with that, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to approve the agenda as so stated with the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. With that, with the approval of the agenda, I'd like to say for PCN 18-0040, Mr. Ornelas, do you want to address that for us?
Yes, this item, which has to do with the proposed changes to the handbook for DeAndrea Plan Development. We have received some correspondence having to do with one of the proposed changes that is material enough that since we just received the letter today, we would propose the item be continued. It is scheduled to be heard as a public hearing item. So, Madam Chair, the Planning Commission should take public comment on it, but we would request the opportunity to review this after this evening and bring this back at the November meeting of the Planning Commission. So again, we're requesting continuance of that.
Okay, thank you. So anybody that's here to speak on that, we will open the public hearing and you will be allowed to speak, but we will not be making a decision on it tonight.
What's the change?
So with that, we're going to go along to approval of the minutes. So if I can have review and possible approval of the minutes for September 4th, Planning Commission study session. Commissioner Carey.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Planning Commission study session minutes of 9/4/2018.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I abstain. I was not here. Next, we'll move along to review and possible approval of the minutes of September 6th Planning Commission meeting. Commissioner Peterson.
That we approve the minutes for Planning Commission on September 6th.
A second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I abstain. Thank you. Next, we'll move along to announcements and committee reports.
Madam Chair, we have none, either announcements or committee reports.
Okay. Any informational items?
No informational items either.
Okay, great. Next, we'll move along to public hearing item PCN 18-0040.
Good evening, Sparks Planning Commission, Jim Rundle, Planning Manager. And as the Deputy Director identified earlier today, we received a letter today, a couple hours before our meeting has started here, that have identified some things that staff would like more time to consider. Staff's request is that the Planning Commission continue this item to the November 1st Planning Commission meeting. This is a public hearing, so that will conclude my presentation unless there's any questions of me.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Rundle? Okay, thank you. Okay, as I said, this is a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing. And request to speak, please. Terrific, thank you. Okay. Mr. Chuck McGuire?
Yes, my name is Charles McGuire, and I live at 2099 Meritage Drive in the Toscana Development.
Terrific. If you can make sure you're in the mic. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I just wanted to, it's a heck of a predicament there in the Toscana. I don't know of the people there that are familiar with it, but there's some awfully small lots. And I'll just give you a little narrative on our lot, because we did remove a tree. And we had verbal approval at the time, and it seemed to be acceptable at one time, and all of a sudden it's become a large issue. The house is offset 11 feet from the sidewalk. The tree was 8 feet from the house and 3 feet from the sidewalk. Branches and limbs extended over the roof and also laid on the roof and the gutters. Roots from tree damaged the sidewalk and 2 squares had to be replaced. And they were replaced the first time at the expense of the Toscana Homeowners Association. But I was told that any further damage would be the property owner. We had a sewer problem, and the person that fixed that and worked on it led me to believe that it was due to the roots. It was a root problem invading the sewer line. The tree was a healthy flowering pear tree, mature height 25 to 30 feet, mature width 10 to 15 feet. So you can see that the overhang would, basically it covered the sidewalk and fell on the house. The tree removal cost was $500, including grinding the stump. And approximately three months later, we had to have the stump removed, and the stump, that was an additional cost of $500 because it was exhibiting new growth. When removing the stump, tunneling had to actually be done under the sidewalk because the roots had protruded under the sidewalk. So that's basically the issue. People say, well, you can put in, you can find any small tree. And a lot of it's not necessarily the overgrowth, it's also the undergrowth and the root system on the tree. And I don't know why when whatever was developed there, I guess they say it was a PUD rule or something in the handbook, that they didn't specify trees, because if you drive through that development, there's some very unsafe conditions in there with trees and potential fire trees leaning on homes. And it's not just one or two, there's numerous ones in there, and that's, I'll rest with that there. I don't know if you have any questions or.
Thank you. Next, it looks like Kitty Tamman, and if I butcher your name, please correct me when you come up to speak, because I apologize. Oh, you do not. Thank you. Okay, Richard Hernandez.
Hello, I'm Richard Hernandez. I live at 2061 Palermo in Toscana. Me and my wife moved in December of 2014. There was no tree in our front yard and no evidence that there ever had been a tree. I'm a 100% service-connected disabled veteran. I have breathing, my lungs were burnt in the military. We were looking for a house with no tree. And then the thing that I signed was 30% vegetation. And then this tree thing comes up later on, and I in favor of removing the tree requirement from our house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Cook.
Planning Commission members, thank you for hearing from me. I want to speak in regards to the street tree removal requirement from the PUD. I talk to you from the perspective of Toscana. I have been the DRC chairman for the Toscana Sub-Association for over 15 years. The purpose of the tree removal requirement is not to denude the community. We all have a vested interest in maintaining a verdant landscape. However, some lots are too small for a full-size tree. D'Andrea DRC guidelines will continue to control tree size. Thank you for your attention.
And if you could please say your name for the record?
I'm sorry?
Your name for the record?
Robert Cook,
Thank you.
1989 Corleone.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Cook. Next, I have Roy and Nancy Allen. Do you guys want to speak separately or to, okay? No, I'll speak. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Please say your name for the record.
I will.
Thank you.
My name is Roy Allen. I live at 2039 Merritt Hodge, and my wife let me speak tonight.
There you go.
So here I am. I also have a relatively small lot, and the tree that was planted years ago before we moved in, we've been there approximately 2.5 years, and the tree roots had grown under the sidewalk, and so they have had to replace the front sidewalk. And then they ground it down because it started to raise again. And so I bought the place and went out and was looking at this, gee whizzikers, I didn't even know it was there, but it was. And it has been rising again. It's becoming a safety issue. We have a lady in our community who walks around, she's blind with her dog, and I would feel absolutely horrible if she was to have an accident over my sidewalk being up like this. Now, if I replace that front sidewalk, I'm responsible for it. Me and my wife are responsible to pay for that repaving, and maybe the roots go into the street, I don't know. But it is a problem, and I got approval to remove that tree. And the tree was removed, and I had to come up with another tree. And so I do have another tree to plant, a much smaller tree, I might add. And that's my problem in a nutshell. What was done years ago, I don't know if you all were here at the time, I don't know. But it's a problem now, and it needs to be addressed. And if you're going to allow trees in places 18 inches from the front sidewalk, gee whizzikers, it's just not right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michael Pawnee?
Good evening. Michael Pawnee, McDonald Corano, on behalf of IPC D'Andrea, the owner of the Monticello Village property in D'Andrea. My client has no issues with trees, but we do have a lot of concerns with the element of the handbook amendment which proposes to eliminate Monticello Village as an existing entitlement. They are adamantly opposed to that proposal. The proposal was brought forward without their knowledge or consent. There was never any discussion or contact with them as the property owner that there's a proposal to amend the planned unit development handbook in a manner that would strip them of their entitlements. So we did submit a letter this morning. I was hoping you would get it in time for the hearing, but I understand you have now received it. We have a number of reasons set forth in the letter in more detail why we do oppose that element of the handbook amendment, but I understand staff's recommendation to continue. We would welcome a continuance and an opportunity to work through these issues with staff before your November hearing. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Betty, is it Yarbara? Ibarra? Thank you.
I too am a resident of Toscana, and my issue is about the trees also. Being a walker every day, we're in an active 55-plus community, and as a rule, I walk every day with 2 little dogs. And this summer has been pure hell. I go down streets where there's 7 to 9 houses with no vegetation, no shade trees at all. And in 99-degree weather, trying to walk every morning, afternoon with 2 dogs, it becomes a kind of a miserable thing. So I would like to see the trees protected in Toscana. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Clark?
I'm actually going to wait.
Okay, thank you. Mila Harris? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. Harvey Whittemore?
We're going to wait until the.
Okay. Great, thank you. Mike Jory? We're going to wait. Okay, thank you. Kurt Reschmidt, and I apologize if I butcher, if you'll correct me.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kirk Reinschmidt. I am a resident of the village of Toscana at DeAndrea, and I am opposed to amending that ordinance about the trees. There are quite a few houses that are being denuded of the trees and the bushes. In fact, there's one front yard I can think of that doesn't have anything at all living in it. It's all artificial plants and turf, which is against the rules. But the board is not enforcing these rules. And some of us residents that have lived there for a decade or more bought into what was supposed to be a planned and regulated community, and it's being changed into something that it wasn't when we moved in. And we want the trees there, we want the bushes, we want vegetation and greenery, and we'd like you not to change that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerard Major? Mager, thank you.
My name is Gerard Mayer. I too am a resident of Toscana. And as you've heard, the requirement for the trees under the PUD is old and has not been enforced. People have been allowed to remove their trees. People have been told they can put in dwarf trees. And we all know about the safety hazards with the driveways, the sidewalks, the utilities. These routes on these small lots are incompatible with that community for a large tree. This is not a citywide ordinance we're talking about here. This is a PUD specifically for our community. And if our community is requesting to eliminate that requirement, it seems to be a no-brainer for this board to say, okay, it's not, no skin off the city's nose. We're not going to cost them anything. This is for the PUD. And if the community wants that, that's what they should get. And when, additionally, when you have people who have been told they don't need a tree, been told they can take a tree out, or they can replace it with a dwarf tree, or didn't have one when they moved in, this has not been universally, equally enforced over the last 17 years, which in my estimation means it no longer is in force. How can you tell people to do something now that they were told earlier they couldn't do, and then put their driveways and utilities in jeopardy and the safety of the walking public? So definitely I am in favor of this portion of this hearing, and I would hope that you would separate Montecito from the tree issue and make a ruling on this portion separately. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Evison?
Thank you. My name is Kathleen Evenson, and I live at 2265 Calabria. and I am the face behind the complaints, just so you know. Back in February of 2017, I noticed that trees were being taken out randomly in Toscana. And I went to the board and asked them for their help. And they told me they were a problem-solving board and not a compliance board. So they told me I had to go to DeAndrea. I went to DeAndrea board meetings, which are only every other month. I was told it was the City of Sparks PUD problem. So in September of 2017, I filed a complaint for 77 homes out of the 480 Toscana homes not having trees. And I want to give thanks to the City of Sparks employees for all their patience, working with us as we had one delay after another delay. And when you said you weren't voting on it today, I was kind of flabbergasted. But it's okay. It's not trees, it's Montecito. I attended the July 2018 DeAndrea board meeting to ask them why they felt they could make the decision to amend the PUD, and they felt that it was something that the 7 board members could do. But on the other side, the city gave them all kinds of time to send out a survey, because there's about 1,500 homes in DeAndrea that the PUD reflects, and they never did that, okay? I was also told that that was to protect the homeowners who had removed trees in the past, the 77, which is now 94 trees out of 480 have been removed. Now, I want to read to you, this is a DeAndrea News, and it comes out about every other month. And there's a section, this is from August of 2018, and there's a section in here about the trees. And it says, the zoning document for the DeAndrea area, we call it the PUD handbook, states that each lot shall have 1 street tree, corner lots must have 3, and the maximum distance between trees is 50 feet. Unfortunately, not all lots were built that way by the developer. Some of the trees on the lots that were built that way have either died or have been removed because of their roots were destroying driveways and/or sidewalks. So the board has submitted an application to the City of Sparks to amend the PUD handbook to remove the street tree requirement. The board fully intends to retain a requirement for each lot to have at least 1 tree in the front yard. At this time, the board is not sure in which of the association's governing documents this requirement will reside, but the membership will receive a copy of that document when it is revised. Now, I consider myself a logical person. Why are they fighting us if they're going to require a tree?
Thank you very much. Is it Rick Gardner?
Yes.
Okay.
Rick Gardner, Certified Community Manager for the DeAndrea Community Association. We have 2 issues tonight, trees and Monticello. I'm going to start with trees. DeAndrea Community Association never intended to come before you and ask for you to take a requirement out of the handbook. That was a decision made in response to Mayor-elect Smith's rather angry demands at a board meeting to solve this issue after Kathleen made the complaint about the 77 homeowners that didn't have trees. The board decided they were going to look at the issue, and once they looked at the issue, they decided, okay, we will try to amend the handbook. The board of directors does not intend, and we apologize if our submittal to you didn't make this clear. We would never intend to say we don't want any trees in people's front yards. We just don't want them called street trees. We want them called a front yard tree. So One tree in every front yard, we're totally amenable to. Fantastic, no problem. I'm going to switch to Monticello. In 2008, Ryder Homes made an amendment to the PUD handbook. We feel illegally because on page 1-19 of the handbook, it says that all amendments must come from DCA. DCA is the DeAndrea Community Association. That amendment did not come from DCA. It came from Ryder Homes and was done by Summit Engineering. We feel that Ryder Homes did that because they were building a part of the community that was had larger lots, and they couldn't conform to the 50-foot minimum distance between trees. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is Monticello cannot be built where it was originally supposed to be built, according to the handbook, because it's underneath major power lines, and the rules on those power lines have changed, and it can't be built there anymore. The tentative map for Monticello has expired, and if anyone wants to build another 72 homes, plus or minus, within DeAndrea, we feel that they should come to the DeAndrea Board of Directors and ask for an amendment to the handbook submitted by DCA. We weren't notified of the original handbook amendment, and we want to correct that error. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other requests to speak? Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and since we're continuing this.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
For the record, whether to continue it or not is up to the Planning Commission's discretion. It is staff's changed recommendation that it be continued to the November 1st meeting, but it still requires a vote and some discussion if needed.
Request a motion. So I need to request a motion from one of you to continue it to November 1st. Commissioner Carey.
Madam Chair, I'll take a stab at this. I think with the new information we received tonight, a continuance is justified. So I will make a motion to continue PCN 18-0040 to the November 1st Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, motion carries. Next, we'll move along to PCN 18-0042, consideration and possible action.
Something you said,
I think, you know what, it must have been, huh?
Control L, right?
I wonder if I can plan another vacation.
Do you want me to wait another few minutes?
Go ahead, we're pretty cleared out.
Okay.
Go right ahead, thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. Before you tonight is an item which consists of two items. The first is a comprehensive plan amendment, and the second is a rezoning for a 1.9 acre site located at 2101 Sullivan Lane. You can see on vicinity map here, it's the property outlined in cyan. It's at the southwest corner of Sullivan and Kelly Ranch Drive. The first request, which is the comprehensive plan amendment, the applicant is asking for the property, which is currently designated large lot residential, to be redesignated to commercial. So this is the existing large lot designation. Here's the map showing the proposed change to commercial. The next request is the rezoning. Currently, the property is designated because when it came up in as, for annexation, it was, came in as single-family 15,000 square foot lots, or SF-15. And the applicant is requesting to change this designation to commercial. City Council did approve the annexation of this property on July 23rd, 2018. Addressing the 4 comprehensive plan amendment findings, the first finding, which is conformance with the regional plan, can be made because the property is currently served by city infrastructure and services, which includes sanitary sewer, storm drain, fire, and police. Addressing finding CP2, the implementation of the Sparks Comprehensive Plan, because the Comprehensive Plan Amendment complies with goals MG1 and policies MG4 and CF1, the applicant is proposing to redevelop the property as a non-residential land use, and the subject property is already served by the city utilities and services. Staff believes that this finding can be made. Finding CP3, which is compatible with the surrounding land uses, can be made because the site is located in a very active area. Sullivan Lane is classified as a collector in the regional transportation plan. And according to the traffic counts in 2018 by Nevada Department of Transportation at Whittakin and Sullivan Lane, which is just north here, up here, they did a count. The ADTs, or average daily trips, was 3,400. So a commercial land use is a reasonable request in this location. Addressing finding CP4, which is public notice, was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on September 20th, 2018, and the neighborhood meeting was held by the applicant on September 25th, 2018. There were 3 people in attendance at that meeting. Next, I would like to address the rezoning request. In the staff report, there is a table comparing the permitted uses by residential, the existing zoning, which is the SF-15, to the proposed zoning C2. And I will spare you not going through that table. If you have specific questions, I will be glad to answer them. Covering the 3 findings, finding Z1, which is the consistency with the comprehensive plan, this can be made because the finding pertaining to the comprehensive plan, which was finding CP2, can also be made for the rezoning request. Addressing finding Z2, which is the consistency with the surrounding land uses. The surrounding area is a mix of single-family homes, 2 schools, and commercial uses, making the request compatible with the surrounding area. It is also located on the collector with 3,400 ADTs. Finding Z3, again, public notice. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on September 20th, 2018. There were 118 notices mailed to the neighbors on September 18, 2018, to properties within 750 feet of the subject's property. That concludes my presentation. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak, or the applicant's representative?
No,
Okay.
we're good, we're happy.
Perfect, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Are there any requests to speak? Nope. Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any questions or a possible motion, please. Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for staff concerning the proposed land use change. I was going through my notes from the Wild Creek Estates project that we reviewed last year and then earlier this year. When this commission reviewed the comprehensive land use change for the Wild Creek Estates, and that's roughly in the same block here, kind of to the northwest of this proposed.
Yeah, it's probably underneath my legends.
Oh, yeah, okay, right there.
Yeah.
So at the time,
Yeah.
just below.
Oh, it is. You're right. Yeah, it would be this area right here.
So at that time, staff was recommending approval of that more intensive land use change. It was LDR, or LDR to a more intense land use, IDR. So at that point, staff was recommending that we put a more intense residential because we needed more residential in this area of the city to help meet housing and affordable in the mix. So I'm curious why within the same block and in this vicinity where why staff is recommending approval of changing a residential land use to a commercial land use, where a year ago we were looking for more residential in this area.
There are several factors that the staff considered on this one. First of all, the Wild Creek Estates project, that's a much larger project. It's almost 5 acres. They are proposing, you've seen the tentative map, for 39 lots. This property is only 1.9 acres. And I did some math this afternoon, and the most they could probably get are 5 residential units on here. This is located on a pretty busy collector street, and so adding residential is generally not a compatible thing to do on a busy residential street. And that's why we feel that we can support the commercial request.
Okay, thank you. My last question with respect to, my last question is, considering that there is public facility to the east, you have residential to the north and south and west, is this proposed land use change considered spot zoning?
I don't think it's spot zoning. It's just, it's just a request to put commercial within that area.
Fair enough. I didn't mean to. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Ornelas?
I would add, Commissioner Carey, this is Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director. It's not directly contiguous to other commercial, but as you can see, a few parcels down to the south, there is other C2 or other commercial land uses in this general area. So it's not truly isolated.
And the MF5, I believe, is actually, in MF5, you allow offices, and I believe that at the corner of Capurro and Sullivan is an office. So even though this is designated MF5, it's actually an office use. So we do have essentially directly south, without the pocket of county, we have commercial uses in the south.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? I'll entertain a motion then.
Madam
Commissioner
Chairman?
Peter? Yes.
I'd like to.
And we
make a
need
motion.
2 different motions, please.
I move to approve the comprehensive plan land use amendment, MPA 18-0003, associated with PCN 180042, based on the findings CP1 through CP4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Commissioner Reed, second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Carey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple comments on the proposed motion, if I may. I really struggled with this proposed land use change. In my opinion, I'm not going to support the proposed motion. I think, as in the opinion of this commissioner, whenever there is a proposed land use change from residential to commercial and it's directly adjacent to single-family residential, I think it has to pass a pretty high standard in terms of impacts and compatibility. With respect to this proposed land use change, I can't make the compatibility finding. I don't believe that it helps support our comprehensive land use goals. I appreciate staff's information and whatever the decision may be, but I just don't feel that this proposed land use change is compatible. I'm not buying that it's an appropriate land use, or it's compatible, based on the fact that there's commercial land uses 2 blocks to the south. I think it should remain residential to help support our comprehensive land use goals and the policies we've set forth as a commission in this area. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay, Commissioner Carey.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Allison McCormick for the record. You do need to open a public hearing for the rezoning matter also.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will open the public hearing up for the rezoning request. Do we have any requests to speak? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion or possible motion. Commissioner Reed, it's your
Commissioner
turn.
Reed. I'll make a motion. I move to forward to City Council a recommendation of approval of the rezoning request RZ 18-0004 associated with PCN 18-0042 based on findings Z1 through Z3 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
I second. Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Carey.
Madam Chair, for the record again, I will be supporting this motion with the commission's change the land use to commercial. I don't find any reason to vote against a C2 zoning, which is clearly allowed in the commercial land use. May not be happy with it, but I'll support it.
Thank you. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we'll move along to PCN 18-0006, MPA 18-0002, condition possible approval of amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Karen Melby, Development Service Manager. This item before you tonight is a comprehensive plan amendment for a property that is 874.2 acres located north of Kiley Ranch South, east of Pioneer Meadows Planned Development, and south of the Lazy 5 Regional Park along Pyramid Highway. You can see in the vicinity map, the boundary of this property is outlined in cyan. I wanted to bring to your attention that there is a typo in the title for this item. The comprehensive plan does not propose to change the open space acreage. It should be 107.2 acres, and the resolution has been corrected to reflect this correct acreage for the open space. The comprehensive plan request land use do not modify the number of or types of land use categories within the Kiley Ranch North. Rather, the proposed change involves the relocation or reallocation of acreage among various land use designations. This is the existing city's land use map for this property, and what they're proposing is to change it to this. There is a slight change in the residential land uses of about 4 acres. For mixed use acreage triples. The purple here is the mixed use. It's going from, if you can here, it is going from 20.5 acres to 69 acres. There is a decrease in the acres for commercial, which represents about an 18.6%, and the employment center is being reduced by 36.1%. The community facilities has increased, which is this area right here. And that is because Washoe County has purchased these, I think it's approximately 33 acres. And they are building a middle school right now and propose to place an elementary school on this. And as I stated earlier, there is no change in the open space. Item 13 on this agenda, which is a tentative map for 169 single-family lots in the Kiley Ranch Planned Development North. The current land use designation is not consistent with the zoning or the Kiley Ranch North Phase 6 handbook. As will be discussed under this item, the zoning or the handbook prevails, but I wanted to note that this proposed comprehensive plan amendment, if approved, will bring the land use designation into conformance with the approved final handbook of Phase 6. It's this area right here. It's an MF 14, and what they're proposing with the tentative map, this IDR land use would be more consistent. On October 18th, 2004, the Kiley Ranch North Tentative Handbook was approved. The City Council approved an amendment to the Kiley Ranch North Tentative Plan Development Handbook on July 11th in 2016. When the city adopted the comprehensive plan in 2016, the approved land uses that were in that plan development were translated into the closest matching comprehensive plan land use designations. This request is now requesting to amend the land uses as adopted in the city's comprehensive plan land use map. If the comprehensive plan amendment is approved, then the tentative plan development handbook will have to be amended following by the amendment of some of the final handbooks and/or approving some new final handbooks. The comprehensive plan amendment will change the job housing balance to 1.6 jobs per housing unit, which generating an estimated 7,071 jobs. In 2016, estimated job housing balance was 1.8 jobs to housing units, or an estimated of 8,138 jobs. With this comprehensive plan amendment, the estimated job housing balance is the same as projected when we reviewed the project in 2004, which was 1.6 housing jobs per housing units. The traffic generation letter prepared for this amendment concludes that the estimated traffic generation represents a reduction in traffic between the 2016 land uses and the 2018 of 22,587 average daily trips. The AM peak is projected to produce 2,000 fewer trips, and the PM is estimated to result in 3,381 fewer trips. Addressing the 4 comprehensive plan findings, the first one, CP1, which is the conformance with the regional plan, can be made because the Kiley Ranch North Plan development has been approved since 2004 and has been included in the city's utility and facilities planning and is located within fee service impact number 1, which has as development occurs, impact fees are collected. Addressing finding CP2, the implementation of the comprehensive plan. The goals and policies relevant to this proposal are goals MG1, MG2, and H2, with the policies MG1, MG5, and C1. The proposed land use changes results in a total of 279 acres of commercial and employment center and mixed use, which represents an approximately 27-acre reduction or less than 9% change. The Kiley Ranch North was approved in 2004 and has been included in the utilities and facility plannings for the region since that time. Therefore, staff views that the proposed land use map is consistent with the goals of providing non-residential land use space and fosters a mix of land uses. Policy MG5 requires that a fiscal implications be analyzed of the proposed land use changes. With the application was submitted a fiscal impact analysis, which concluded that the estimated revenue for the general fund is $287.4 million, with the expenditures totaling $211.8 million, producing a revenue surplus to the general fund of $75.6 million over a 30-year period. Addressing the road fund, $25.6 million is estimated to be generated with expenditures of $57.2 million, resulting in a deficit of $31.6 million over a 30-year period. If you combine the general fund and the road funds, the result is a positive fiscal impact of approximately $44 million. City staff has 2 broad comments regarding the fiscal impact analysis. The first one pertains to the methodology. Staff has reviewed the initial recommendations from EPS, which is the consulting firm that the city has contracted with for preparation of a fiscal impact analysis methodology that future applicants will be asked to use. The city staff has reviewed the draft guidelines for the preparation of a fiscal impact analysis, which will be adopted in the future. However, in this situation, the master developer is not obligated to revise the Kiley Ranch North fiscal impact analysis to reflect the methodology as proposed by EPS. Our second comment regarding the fiscal impact analysis. The proposed land use changes for Kiley Ranch North would reduce the acreages allocated for commercial and employment center land uses. The build-out assumptions used in the Kiley Ranch North fiscal impact analysis related to square footage projected to be developed remain relatively static, which suggests more intense development than the current plan for Kiley Ranch FARs are, and are historically higher than the characteristics of these types of developments in the city of Sparks. Accordingly, city staff anticipates asking that such assumptions will be included in the future handbook amendments, which may take the form of a minimum FAR requirement for non-residential land uses consistent with achieving the build-out assumptions that are in the fiscal impact analysis. Addressing findings CP3 compatible with our surrounding land uses. To the north is Lazy 5 Regional Park. To the east is Pioneer Meadows Plan Development, and also some wetlands over here. To the south is the Kylie Ranch South Project Plan Development, and to the west is the Quarry Project. The proposed land use designations would not fundamentally modify the planned character of this area or adversely impact the surrounding land uses. Addressing finding CP4, which is public notice. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on September 20th, 2018. The neighborhood meeting was held by the applicant on September 19th, 2018, and there were 12 people in the attendance. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Commissioner Peterson?
Will this proposal put additional roadways onto Vista, in egress and egress?
The proposal does not change any of the road network.
Oh, it doesn't.
No.
Okay. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here?
Good evening. For the record, Mike Rayleigh with Rubicon Design Group, representing KM2 Development. Also with me is Lois Brown with KM2, Scott Christie with KM2 and Christie Corp., as well as Eugenia Larmore with EK Economic Consultants. I think Karen did a great job summarizing the request and going through the issues, and we're happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Carey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, Karen brought up in her presentation about the higher floor area ratios that may be coming in the non-residential areas. I was wondering if you concur with that assessment, and whether you think that would be a reality moving forward.
That's something that we're working with staff right now, but I think definitely that we're going to have to demonstrate that the fiscal analysis is valid, and that's something that will come in the future. So when those handbook amendments come back, you'll see that come through.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, it is a public hearing. Do I have any requests to speak? Okay. With that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any further questions, comments, motions?
Commissioner Reed, I move to approve the request to amend the comprehensive plan associated with PCN 18-0006 based on findings CP1 through CP4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Can I have a first?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Brock is second. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Carey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a comment on the proposed motion. As this commission may be well aware, I am always in support of more professional office, more jobs in Sparks. I think the Kylie Ranch North development is key to the city's fiscal future. I know since this project's been kicked around since 2004, the professional office and non-residential land uses in this area are critical to, I believe, to the city's success of its comprehensive plan. I hate losing more professional office, but with that being said, I would encourage staff moving forward to hold the developer to the higher floor area ratio standards and the higher mixed use standards moving forward. We need more jobs in Sparks if we're going to solve the land use issues in the Spanish Springs Valley and on Pyramid Highway and all of that good stuff. We need to continue to hold on to our land uses. With that being said, I believe that for the most part, this is a technical land use change to catch up with what we've done with the phased handbooks moving forward, and I will be supporting the motion. Just wanted to put those comments out there about the floor area ratios and holding on to those land uses moving forward.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Fewens, I guess, Karen, I don't know if you can answer this for me or not, but, you know, we're obviously 874 acres, and we've had this come up quite a few times that are with the mutual aid agreement with Turkey Meadows Fire. What's the time frame we're talking about Fire Station 6? Is there something that's looking at coming?
I would like to have the Director of Community Services address that, please.
I had to get you up here, John.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission, John Martini, your Community Services Director. As the commission will remember, we have Impact Fee Service Area 1, which contemplated fire service for the Impact Fee Service Area, which once upon a time we all knew as the NSSOI. Fire Station 5 was built out of that fund on the east side of Northeast Sparks. It has been paid in full. We are now, as permits come in, cash is going into the account for Fire Station 6 so that we can do several things. The first off is find a suitable location. Our fire chief has worked with a consultant, and we have located 2 potential fire station locations that would meet response criteria for the area. The 2 locations came out about equal in response time. One location is in Kylie North, actually off of Wingfield Hills Parkway when we have that extended, kind of near the Belimo site that's out there now. The second one that seems to be as suitable is in Pioneer Meadows, again along that arterial. We have started discussions with both landowners on locating a site for Fire Station 6. The next step will be, once the site is located, of course, acquisition of the land, design of the fire station, and then its eventual construction. To answer your question more specifically, Commissioner Fewens, timing for when that would be constructed, when I last looked, the account had about $500,000 in it, I think is about in a round number as to where we are for accumulation of funds. I suspect when I bring the next update to Impact Fee Service Area 1 to you for review of the land use assumptions as well as the capital improvements plan, of which Fire Station 6 will be included. The cost of that fire station in today's dollars has grown a bit above what I brought to you last time. I think we're looking at a station that's going to cost somewhere between $5 and $7 million. So we will have to adjust impact fees to cover those costs. And as soon as there's enough cash in the account to start construction, which at current rates would be, in my estimate right now, in excess of 10 years, Commissioner Fewens, we're a ways out from having that station constructed and staffed and built. And as the commission will remember, the staffing and the purchase of the equipment is a general fund expense. We can't put that in Impact Fee Service Area 1. So in a roundabout long discussion, Commissioner Fewens, I think we're in excess of 10 years before we see that station. Now, I will make a caveat. If we return to development levels that we saw in the mid-2000s, where we were building anywhere between 800 and 1,500 homes a year for a few years there, that cash will come into the account at a more rapid pace, and that could shorten the time to build that fire station. But for what we see now, we are building very modestly. We're only building about 500 single-family homes a year. Of course, you guys know that multifamily has been on the increase. We do have some multifamily activity in Impact Fee Service Area 1. The majority of it, however, is in the core and does not pay into that impact fee system, as the services are already provided by our existing fire stations. So it'll be a while from what we're seeing right now.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, I have one comment to Commissioner Carey's comments regarding the floor area ratio. I want to commend the developer and staff for working together on having to remap a good portion of this, because the school district came in and took an additional 15 acres that would have been developed for what we needed. So I believe that the developer has been very responsive in working with staff and making sure that they stay within our requirements. So with that, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Next, we'll move along to PCN 180050-MPA 18-0004, consideration and possible approval of amendment comprehensive plan for Pioneer Meadows.
Planning Commission members, I'm Ian Crittenden, Senior Planner. As stated, this is a comprehensive plan amendment request on a site 10.6 acres in size in the Pioneer Meadows plan development. Looking at the vicinity map here, Pioneer Meadows is outlined in the kind of orange color, and the site we're talking specifically about is outlined in cyan. The Pioneer Meadows Handbook was approved in 2000, has been amended 3 times. This site has been designated as a potential school site throughout that time. And within the handbook, the timeline was given for the school to be able to take down that property as 5 years. That time has elapsed, and the applicant is now looking to make some amendments so they can move forward with developing this site as single-family housing, which was outlined in the handbook, that if the site was not taken down, that it would become single-family with a maximum of 4 units per acre as kind of the limit for its development capacity. The proposed amendment also, just to kind of go through the site plans here and the changes in the land uses. The existing land use, as you can see here, is CF. That's our standard land use for community facilities, and would be the right land use for a school and a adjacent park. The school was on the southern half, and this potential adjacent and incorporated park was on the northern half. The proposed is to change that all to LDR, which is low density residential. You can see from this figure out of the handbook, the 2 areas highlighted in pink are potential future parks. This portion of this site that was a future park will have to be reassessed. We're working with the property owners to figure out how we're going to do that. But at this time, it makes less sense to push that way up to the north and on the very edge of the development if there's no park involved. And so we're working with the developer to figure out the correct location for that future park. So going back to the land use map and looking at the proposed development or the proposed land use, changing that land use to LDR will be compatible with the adjacent uses. The uses will be discussed more during that portion of the findings, but you can see that the adjacent uses are predominantly already LDR, and continuing to move in that direction seems to be a compatible use. As stated, there are 4 findings associated with a comprehensive plan amendment. Finding 1 requires conformance with the regional plan. The proposed change supports goals 1.1 of the regional plan, as this site is within the city of Sparks' portion of the TMSA, but it also is within the city of Sparks city limits, obviously. It also supports goal 3.5, which generally relates to concurrency. As this site is within the planned development of Pioneer Meadows, provision of services was already planned, and as was stated by Director Martini, this site is also within the IFSA, or Impact Fee Service Area number 1. And so those utilities and those provisions of service will be assessed through those impact fees as well. Finding CP2 requires that the proposed change would be implement goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The change would support goal H2 by promoting a strong housing market, additional housing options. Policy MG5 requires that a fiscal impact analysis be submitted and reviewed. The fiscal impact analysis that was submitted indicated that this amendment would generate a surplus of $791,000 to the general fund and a deficit of $774,000 to the road fund, with a cumulative surplus to the city of $17,000 over the span of 20 years. That's not a huge positive impact. However, this is changing the land use from a community facility designation that would generate no funds. So this is, whether or not it's hugely positive or breaks even or is even a little bit negative, it will be more positive than the existing land use. Policy CF1 is also supported by this proposed change, as CF1 looks for city infrastructure to be available. Being inside of planning area, those infrastructure levels were anticipated, and this will not exceed those that were described. Again, impact fee service area 1 helping to generate the funds to do that. Finding CP3 requires that the change in land use be compatible with surrounding land uses. As you can see on the map here, the sites to both the east and the south are already LDR, so there's obviously not a compatibility issue there. To the north, we're looking at unannexed, non-annexed Washoe County properties with land uses from the city of Sparks associated that are both open space and LDR, which again are easy to see that those would be compatible land uses. The land use to the west is EC, which is employment center. That employment center uses are also compatible with LDR. Residential and employment uses are compatible and complementary uses that support and sustain each other. I thought that was a good little line for my staff report. I wanted to This is also supported by the fact that LDR to the south is also adjacent to that EC area, so it was contemplated that they would be adjacent land uses and would complement and help each other out. And then finally, finding CP4 requires proper notice of this request. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal on September 20th, and the Planning Commission and City Council will act as the public hearings. The applicant also held the required neighborhood meeting on September 19th. No members of the public attended that meeting. Staff believes that all the findings for this application can be made, and we are recommending approval. That's the end of my presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Are there any questions from the commissioners of staff? Okay. Yes, Commissioner Fewens.
Yep. Ian, but did you hear anything of why Washoe County didn't purchase, or do we know any?
I believe it's because of the location of the schools in Kylie Ranch.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Carey.
If I may also respond to Commissioner Fewens' comment, and this is for the commission's information. I reached out after our study session to Pete Etchart, who's the chief operating officer for the school district, about this item. And Pete informed me that they in fact don't need this school site anymore. It's not part of their plans. Pete mentioned that the school board recently purchased some land at one of their board meetings up in the Stonebrook area. And so this was more information. I wish the school district would have said that in their letter moving forward, and maybe they will. But just some information for the commission based on a discussion that I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey.
Just as an FYI as well, when these plan development handbooks were drafted, there was lots of consideration tried to be made for potential school sites. I think with the understanding that not all of them would be needed, but it would be better to have them available and not be needed. So the language that was written into this one that, hey, 5 years, the school district determine if they need it, and then it would return to our ability to develop it for adjacent land use like the LDR that's already there.
Great. Thank you. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to speak?
Good evening. Just for the record, Stacy Huggins with Ward Rogers representing the applicant. Ian did a great job of summarizing the request before you tonight. I don't have anything pertinent to add to that, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions of the applicant's representative? Okay, thank you. With that, it's a public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for any further discussion, a motion.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Peterson.
I'd like to make the motion, if I may, please.
Okay,
I move to approve the request to amend the comprehensive plan associated with PCN 180050 based on the findings CP1 through CP4 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff's report.
second. Okay, I have a first and a second. Commissioner Brock, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we'll move to general business item PCN 18-0049/STM 18-0010. Consideration of approval of a tentative map in Kylie Ranch, Phase 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Planning Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Cummins, planner. PCN 18-0049 is a tentative map request for 169 lot single-family residential subdivision on 21.75 acres in the Kylie Ranch North Phase 6 plan development outlined in cyan on your map. This handbook, a little bit of background, this handbook was approved by City Council in 2014, and staff believes that this proposed tentative map be compatible with subdivisions recently approved in the Kylie Ranch North Phase 6. The 169 lots proposed in this tentative map range in size from 3,400 square feet to just over 8,100 square feet, maintaining a density of 7.77 dwelling units per acre. The Kylie Ranch North Phase 6 handbook requires a density of 6 to 11.9 dwelling units per acre at this site, with their designation of MR medium residential. So this tentative map conforms with that density range. The Sparks Comprehensive Plan requires in the current MF14 zoning or land use designation, 10 to 14 dwelling units per acre. While this tentative map falls below that range, the proposed changes to the comprehensive plan land uses for this area, which were brought before you this evening, would bring this tentative map's range, density range into conformance. So with that said, staff believes that the following 12 findings can be made by the Planning Commission. Finding T1 requires conformance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Staff believes that the proposed tentative map meets goal CF1, that the city be able to provide acceptable service levels. Policy C4, that pedestrian networks exist. Policy H1, that sufficient zoning along with infrastructure exists for the production of new housing within the city. Policy H2, that varieties of housing types exist to expand choices available to the city's diverse population. And policy CC8, that neighborhood diversity exists with varied lot sizes. Finding T2 requires conformity to the city's street master plan. Staff has determined that the proposed tentative map does conform. Finding T3 requires conformance to the environmental and health laws. Staff has determined that this tentative map does. Finding T4 requires availability of water. The applicant has determined the need for 50.57 acre feet of water per year at this site. That water will be provided by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, and those water rights are in place. Finding T5 requires the availability of and access to utilities. The developer has estimated that the development will generate 164,775 gallons of sewage per day. The developer will provide documentation that adequate sewer capacity exists prior to the recordation of a final map. Additionally, stormwater and drainage plans will be reviewed by the city manager prior to the recordation of that map as well. Finding T6 requires the availability of public services such as schools, police, and transportation. Washoe County School District estimates that the subdivision will bring 38 new students at Hall Elementary, 8 new students at Shaw Middle School, and 16 new students at Spanish Springs High School. Additionally, under construction currently is the Sky Ranch Middle School in Kylie Ranch, which would alleviate any potential overcrowding in the future. Sparks Police currently provides service, as will Sparks Fire and the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, according to the mutual aid agreement, given that the site is outside the 6-minute response time for Sparks Fire Department. RTC has provided guidelines for access and levels of service to be met by the developer. Those comments are included in agency comments with the staff report. And finally, Nevada Energy will provide gas and electric services to the site. Finding T7 addresses the effects of proposed subdivisions on public streets and highways. Staff believes that the volume of traffic to be served by existing roads and highways will be sufficient. Finding T8 addresses the physical characteristics of land such as floodplain, slope, and soil. Developer will be required to provide final hydrological and geotechnical reports prior to the final map. Finding T9 requires that staff consider comments of outside agencies. I commented a moment ago about the Washoe County School District and RTC being the only agencies to provide those comments. Finding T10 is specific to fire protection. As I mentioned, there's the mutual aid agreement for this site between Sparks Fire and Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Finding T11 requires staff to identify any other impacts. This tentative map would be, much like previous ones approved in Kylie Ranch North Phase 6, required that common areas be managed by an HOA or a sub-HOA. Finding T12 requires that public notice be given for the item. Posting of agendas for this meeting and the subsequent city council meeting will serve as that notice. So staff is recommending approval of this item, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions, staff? Commissioner Carey?
I'll keep Jonathan on his toes. Is this site within the 6-minute fire response time?
It is not.
It's not. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Couldn't stump him.
Any further questions? Okay. With that, any discussion or motion? I'm going to pick somebody.
All right, I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Reed?
I move to forward to City Council a recommendation of approval of the tentative map for the Kylie Ranch North Phase 6 Village 36 subdivision associated with PCN 18-0049, adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 16.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Brock. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we'll move along to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, thank you. Next, we'll take comments from the commissioners. Any comments?
Yeah,
You don't wanna
what's all
close
the
this
weight
out?
on this side for the motions tonight?
There you go. Thank you.
guys did well.
Okay, no comments from the commissioners. With that, we adjourn. Thank you.